Hello and welcome again to another episode of Nutanix Weekly, one of the many podcasts we produce here at XenTegra. It's content with context. We find the best content we can on the internet. We add our real world context to things, discuss it, and try to bring that knowledge to you. Thanks again for listening. My name's Phil Sellers. I'm your host for today. I'm also the practice director for modern data center here at XenTegra. And so when we say modern data center, what we're talking about is something that's software defined and really cloud native. So supporting that, Nutanix is one of our key partners. And so as always on the podcast, we have a few guests who help us unpack that knowledge. So resident Nutanix architect Jirah Cox is one of our good friends. Jirah, how are you doing?
Good. I guess you could say I do reside here.
Yeah, well, at least for the podcast, cornerstone, right?
Yeah.
And we're also joined with Chris Calhoun, who's a solutions architect here at XenTegra. Chris, how's life treating you?
Fantastic. Glad to get the gang back together and have a good conversation today.
So I got to say, I'm waiting for the day when Chris goes something other than fantastic. I will be honest, I enjoy the optimism that this man brings to the room anywhere he goes. So I appreciate that about you, my friend.
Yep.
Might be a very long wait.
Enjoy the time together for sure.
That's it. Well, today we're talking about Nutanix container management and just containers in general, but we're reviewing a blog post here that's called A Breakout Year for Nutanix Container Management. It's written by Steve Carter, published on July 30th. And the gist of this article is that containers continue to be the cornerstone for modern application development, and Nutanix has invested greatly in container strategy and making sure that there's an end-to-end solution in place. One of the key ways that Nutanix did that was by the acquisition of D2iQ or Day2iQ, formerly known as Mesosphere. It's been a stalwart in this new, relatively recent container management sort of story. Founded relatively around the same time as Kubernetes, Mesosphere came out as an alternative to Kubernetes management. And then the company shifted focus and really has invested in building the open source around Kubernetes as a standard for container management. Jirah, I'm really interested to hear your take on this, but the news here in the article from Steve Carter is that you guys have been recognized by Forrester in their most recent wave report for multi-cloud container platforms. You guys have been recognized as a leader. So top right quadrant or wave of their report.
Upright
That's
concentric
pretty.
sphere.
Yeah, exactly. Upper right. You guys have been recognized. That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I think we were, of course, delighted to see it, and humbly grateful for the recognition. I know that the team working on NKP, right, and the D2iQ team have been hard at work, right, making sure that the product is, of course, top notch, but also deeply integrated into the platform, right?
Mhm.
So and I think that speaks to a lot of what Forrester is recognizing here is that yes, of course, it is containers, yes, it's Kubernetes, but also some of the strengths, right, that really put the wind in its sails is things like the simplified management, right, the ability to run decoupled with like infrequent access or a dark site deployment model, full coverage for things like container storage, disaster recovery for the same. Those things really give you that kind of well-rounded experience, right? It is, I don't know, Kubernetes plus plus. That's a Jirah-ism. Maybe don't Google that. Not an official sanctioned term, but it gives you what you need, right, to really help operationalize it in your environment.
Yeah, and it's not your first foray into this. There have been previous announcements, developments. Kubernetes has been part of the portfolio for a while, but we've gone from something that's a very narrowed, focused Kubernetes release to something that is more a platform. And I think that's a big part of this leadership. You've got something that can answer all the necessary questions.
Totally. It's been an evolving space for quite a while. If you go back far enough, the the Google archives might even turn up things like a Nutanix Docker plugin, right? So we've always been keeping our eye on the container space, I would say, and chasing the puck, following the puck, skating where puck's going at various times. Sometimes alongside, ahead of, behind the puck. A lot of spatial arrangements here between Nutanix and pucks, but a lot of trying to be involved with helping our customers vend container platforms that they need, right, as part of their cloud platform.
And let me cut in here real quick and ask Jirah, is that the extent of your hockey knowledge, Jirah?
Oh, that was hockey? Oh, dang.
Sports ball. Yeah, it's a flattened ball. It's
rather dense and hurts when it hits you. Yes.
yeah.
No, I think that's exactly it, right? You went from this understanding that Kubernetes is not a thing, but an ecosystem. And I think my own journey working with other platforms, trying to take a infrastructure team and really figure out, how do we do this Kubernetes thing that we keep reading about? How do we make it real within our organization? Well, Kubernetes was just one of the many choices we were going to have to make. We were going to have to figure out what network plugin, what storage plugin, what service mesh we were going to do. How are we going to do SSL and inspection and things like that inside of the container ecosystem? And that's what NKP brought. So a year ago, Nutanix released its first fully integrated production grade platform for Kubernetes, the Nutanix Kubernetes Platform based on D2IQ. The other part that I find interesting too, Jirah, you talk about the integration. A lot of companies in technology, they go out and they buy and they try to integrate a company. And the results are varied, not always positive. That's also a piece of recognition I think that Forrester is bringing to the report, is that you made huge investments through this acquisition, but then you really worked hard to kind of support that and nurture it and make sure that it got integrated at really key points in the infrastructure.
I think that's what customers are looking for, right? Like people want to own a platform and not a a pile of point products. That was almost alliterative. I was very close. A pile of point products. It is 3Ps. Good. Awesome. Thank you. My brain's catching up. That integration is what really counts, right? That's what you need, when you're in the escalation, when you call support, right? Like when I can call one vendor and that vendor can cover everything from, firmware updates to the hypervisor, to the storage fabric, to the storage services like SMB, NFS, S3, whatever my containers want to consume, to the container platform, with one phone call. That's easy. Like that sounds much more delightful than I could call 8 vendors, right, to get those things. But calling fewer sounds a lot better, right? Let alone it being a vendor with great support.
Well, and it's modular, right? Kubernetes was designed to be modular. Nutanix is delivering something that answers every question, throughout the stack. But you're not tied to that. You have choice still at the end of the day, which is also a great thing. But that unified support that you're talking about is key. Chris, I'm going to throw it to you. I mean, do you have nightmares still going through compatibility matrices and trying to come up with the right formula? This this works with this product and this works with that product, and we have to have all these lines and hold our mouth just right and then upgrade.
I definitely have war stories of exactly that. I remember doing a firmware upgrade on an Exchange server. And that Exchange server didn't last too long. So we had a man down. So basically, because of the little small asterisk at the bottom corner of this Rosetta Stone of mirroring products, platforms, versioning, etc., to get the right version, there was a little asterisk that was missed. So yeah, I am very pleased that that is no longer the case. And I kind of feel like what we've talked about so far is exactly what Nutanix always does for the end user. Simplify the difficult technologies and make them easier to manage. And I think that that's really echoes in everything that Nutanix does. Obviously, this acquisition was perfect for that. Instead of having to buy point product 1, 2, 3, the idea here is, hey, if you've got a platform this integrated, and specifically with this announcement, I remember, Jirah, I think if it was last year, right after the .next, it was a tighter partnership with NVIDIA and Hugging Face, some of the key players in the area of this type Kubernetes world. So I think that that was a big win there too, knowing that this isn't just a separate offering. This is a true platform. Jirah, talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to make a joke tying off of Philip's joke about nightmares and so forth. Like, tell me, Chris, have the upgrade matrices stop screaming.
Yeah. There's still echoes.
That's how my brain works. And with that, I have distracted myself. Sorry, you were throwing to me with what question?
Oh, you said that you could share, but I didn't know what you were sharing about. So let's start over. Rewind. Yes, matrices.
Yeah.
Echoes.
No,
nightmares.
I think,
How
well,
about that?
and exactly, right. And how do I do it? How do I get from X to Y, right? Because continual governance is a absolutely mandatory component, right? Like, it's not something I deploy once. I have to have continual lifecycle coverage for the entire thing. And even in Philip, like with your story, right? Working with, how do we vend this to the business? That's not something even infrastructure can even decide on their own, right? Like app teams have an outsized amount of influence on that kind of tooling and components of the stack there. So just because our stack is I like to call it lightly opinionated, right? If you don't have an opinion, we bring one that you can use and it's perfectly valid. If you have a stronger one, we say yes, like let's use yours instead, or on a cluster by cluster basis, right? If you need to change out your ingress or your, cost governance or your, CI/CD pipelines on a per cluster basis, that's totally fine, right? You can tailor the stack to the tooling that your teams prefer.
Well, and I want to take what you just said. So, right, across all of these, I call it the sunburst slide. If you've never seen it from Nutanix, kind of covers all the different things. I think there's 12 different areas of Kubernetes where you can have an opinion of which project or which plugin you want. But this goes beyond just NKP. There's other things like Nutanix database, Nutanix objects, which also go to that same core need of your application developers. They need places to store data. They need places and databases to access to make the applications really functional. So you're also providing that in the ecosystem. So this goes a bit further than just an NKP conversation. You've got the complete story. So you've got the complete story if you want to do a Kubernetes deployment, but you've got the complete story if you need private cloud in your data center.
That's if apologies to customers that have had me meet with them in person. You'll usually hear me say, we're here to look, act, and feel like a cloud platform to the business, right? But you as the cloud team get, to own it if you choose to with CapEx and not have to be committed to OpEx. You can do that as well if you do prefer that. And that needs as little care and feeding from you as the operations team as possible, right? We always, of course, you're always in charge of when upgrades kick off because it's a private platform, right? You have to be in charge of when changes are happening.
Right.
But it doesn't take an awful lot more than you as a practitioner to just tell us what version you want to upgrade to, and we automate the process of how you get from X to Y.
Yeah, and that's again to Chris's point, making it simple to consume, simple to deploy, and simple to get return on investment. So I know we don't talk about that a lot as infrastructure teams because we all enjoy talking about speeds, feeds, features, and capabilities. But our business partners, they want to see quick return on investment. They want to see efficacy of the dollars that they deploy, either OpEx or CapEx. And so the automation pieces go a long way towards making you look like the rock star in your organization by getting these projects done in an expedited way. I'm trying to think what else we've got here from the Forrester report. One of the quotes here, NKP builds on D2IQ's strengths, earning high marks in cluster lifecycle operations, especially seamless, non-disruptive upgrades. It also excels in edge deployments, including air-gapped and intermittently connected environments. That brings up some really interesting stories. I've heard both cruise ships and lane shipping industry both utilizing more containerized applications on their boats. That intermittently connected story resides with, definitely resonates there. Oil industry, lots of sites across the world, platforms in the ocean. There's a lot of things that we're starting to see containers first in those sorts of new use cases. As you're talking to customers, I'm curious about some of the places where this was really taking hold. I think, we've talked about fast food restaurants and mobile apps for fast food. What are some other great examples that are coming up from your discussions, Jirah?
The really all the above, right? Of course, I mean mobility, right? If I need a cluster or a portion of my cloud that can literally travel around, so on transportation industry stuff, manufacturing, of course, is huge, right? The analytics, and of course the edge, right? If I can fit part of my cloud under someone's desk or under a cash register, that of course is very meaningful. Um, and of course, it plays into the strength of the platform, right? Kubernetes, of course, is built to scale. Therefore, it's actually pretty conceivable to get just enough Kubernetes at the edge to run a little bit of compute and storage. Pair that up perhaps even with inference, right? Like I want to be able to think about camera data or location data or ambient things that I can capture with sensors in the environment, all the way into the data center, right? Where I would deploy actually line of business impacting applications, right? And I can deploy more Kubernetes there. So scales up, scales down, seamless management across all of it. And I even do love Forrester's remarks here around helping customers, that want alternatives to public cloud services, right? So there's a better together story, right? Of course, there's a great way to run NKP in public clouds, federating with public clouds, but also really offering that, look, we can be, it is an achievable outcome to be the cloud team at a company these days and offer internal cloud services that really can hold their own and compete with public cloud services, right? So that's more of a partnering with the business, partnering with IT versus a bypass motion. I think that's just healthier for everybody.
Yeah, one of the things that I advocated for, and I still believe this to be true, Kubernetes is sort of dial tone. It's that base layer on which you can build. Now, all the choices you make around how that ecosystem fits together, that's going to be your standard of operation. So, there are lots of choices for Kubernetes and public cloud, but there's also arguably a reason why you would want to run your own and control your own destiny in public cloud on something like an NKP, because again, to that point of you controlling when the software changes, when it's upgraded, it's not done for you. For some enterprises, it's scary to think that their substrate is just going to get upgraded on its own with zero control from IT. that definitely hits back to a lot of strong change control type organizations.
And it goes back to your point, Philip, about the sunburst slide. Nutanix has already got those integrations. And Jirah, you said, hey, look, if you don't have a choice, we've got one. And these are all validated plugins. These are all validated technologies that work with the Kubernetes platform with Nutanix. And to me, that's a benefit too from, we'll say, an engineer who is transitioning from the good old days of virtualization where they controlled the stack. It was VM, it was back-end storage. They knew exactly what the infrastructure was like, to now more of, hey, this person now has to transform their mindset and approach as a cloud engineer, where infrastructure is flexible, but it's also integrating these other technologies too. And I think that that's the part that Nutanix does well, again, making that integration with the networking, which may have been in the past a separate siloed group. But in an infrastructure world where the lines are blurred now as you move forward, those solutions engineers and architects are helping to build full stack business solutions from end to end. And that's really the key, is that tight integration, full stack offering from Nutanix, and the portability of it being scaled down to under somebody's desk at a remote site to a large infrastructure hosted in a private data center that's your own business cloud. It doesn't have to be one specific model of a one size fits all. That's the flexibility that Nutanix has always added in their solutions.
It's always a dangerous prospect to have a new thought while recording a podcast. But your dial tone comment there, Philip, reminded me, and it meshes with Chris's silos comment. I kind of think it's been since the days of the mainframe that we've seen IT having to partner so closely with the business, right? All through kind of general Gen Pop x86, all through virtualization. Virtualization helped IT do IT shaped things better and faster, and had dramatic impact and awesome results for virtualization, for infrastructure delivery itself. But the way that we thought about applications and delivered applications and installed them didn't change. Right. So to your point around Kubernetes' dial tone, it's table stakes. It is, because it's just at the risk of being reductive to all my deep in the weeds CKA friends, it's the fashionable way to install applications. Right. So like if you don't support the fashionable way to install applications, well, that's not a great report card, right, on the team. And so that way that applications want to get installed requires a lot of collaboration, and it does just destroy silos, right? We have to get more collaborative there. So it naturally leans into all of that.
Well, and there's one thing, Chris, as you went through your list of reasons why, I thought of another reason why. And, this is universal to open source support. Supportability is such a huge factor in this, with so much new, so much potential to break. I mean, when you look at the Sunburst slide, you've got a ton of logos on here. There's choice, which is great. But to a new infrastructure team coming to Kubernetes at the behest of their app developers, this is intimidating and this is overwhelming. So being able to partner up with a company that's not only going to give you an opinion, but also then help you support it, that's a huge step forward.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is the Red Hat business model at the end of the day, right? They built their company around support for open source. Nutanix is also a great steward. In this particular area, they're working really hard with the foundation and CNCF and really trying to move Kubernetes forward and get things to a place where everything works cohesively together. So, having support from someone with the experts who are serving on the board, who are developing what that future looks like, it's also a really what's the right word? I'm thinking of Linus and his blue blankie. It's a very
This
good
is security blanket. Yeah,
security blanket.
Yeah.
it's open
Yeah.
source with a phone number and a support portal, not just, your best friend Google.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, could we do it? I mean, yeah, there are smart people, but there are smart people out there that can make these science projects work together and they enjoy doing it. It's a different thing to do it at enterprise scale. It's a different thing to do it at the risk of downtime and lost income.
Yeah.
I'm curious, any other things that stand out? I think we've pretty much pulled apart this chicken and we've just about eaten it all. Just just to keep that analogy going.
You try to record a podcast after lunch, but then sometimes you're just hungry all over again.
Still hungry again.
Yep.
Any other tasty additions from you?
Tasty nuggets.
Yeah, any other tasty nuggets that you'd throw out there?
Mm.
I think we covered it pretty
I'm
well.
hearing crickets.
Food.
Anyway, all right.
Nuggets.
Well, guys, as always, I appreciate it. This is exciting. It's great to be recognized for the great stuff that you're doing. If you would like to see the Forrester report we're talking about, it's available on Nutanix's website. It's linked from the blog post we're talking about. Again, the name of that blog post is it's been a breakthrough year for Nutanix container management. It's written by Steve Carter. It's available at nutanix.com/blog. You should go check it out. Also read the Forrester Rave report that we're talking about. And last but not least, thanks for spending a little time with us. Me and my two amigos here. We've enjoyed it, and I hope you've learned something today. Because I think we have all learned a little something from each other. Everyone have a great afternoon, after lunch, after breakfast, whatever it happens to be. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you in the next podcast.